The Seattle Kraken organization won in two key ways on Tuesday night. However, we got to keep it real. Neither one was enough.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Now that's some Kraken hockey, baby. Erica Ayala here, going to recap Tuesday night's game, which I just want to remind you, I manifested, I affirmed it for the team, and they got it done. We will talk about that on today's episode of Locked On Kraken, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we bring you your favorite team every single day. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. I said the Seattle Kraken won in two key ways. One was on the ice. They got a 4-2 victory over the Pittsburgh Penguins. You know, we went over some of the numbers, also just kind of the narratives for the Pittsburgh Penguins, not as great as they would like it to be this season. We can certainly relate to that. Shots on goal for the Pens, 33 shots on goal to 18 for the Seattle Kraken. This was a bonkers game in a lot of ways, which again goes back to why the on-ice win, it's not enough. More needs to be done. We'll break that down a little bit today, but certainly tomorrow for a game day episode. But there was another pretty big victory that actually started before the puck dropped in PPG Paints Arena, and the one and only Ron Francis addressed head on the reporting that included he never wanted to hire Dan Bylsma, that Ted Lewicki came and talked to the team. Now, I cleared the air on that on yesterday's episode, but that was one of the things that he addressed. And again, it was a huge win, and I'll break this down as to why I think it was a victory, and yet it's still not enough. I'm going to explain that. But first, let's hear, I have a few clips. And yes, if you're watching on YouTube, I do have the Uma hat. You can also probably see I am not in headquarters. That's also why this episode's a little later in the day. I needed to get some rest. I've been on 3 of the 4, 5. How many time zones are in the United States? I've been in 3, the majority of the time zones just in this month of it's not December, of January already. So took a little bit of rest throughout the day when I landed here in Florida. But back at it on the microphone, because this is important to break down. When I started seeing, I follow Allison Lucan probably most closely from anyone affiliated with the Seattle Kraken on the staff and the broadcast team. And so when I saw it was like Ron Francis joining, make sure you tune in. I was like, oh, okay. This is gonna have to deal with what we heard and what I reported from 32 Thoughts. I hope that I did a pretty good job of saying, it was reported that, and things of that nature, allegedly things of that nature. I do think miscommunication could easily be a part of the challenge with this team, but you'll hear from the clip that Ron Francis, he actually had, in his remarks, I should say, he talks about communication and his communication with Samantha Holloway, which he says is not every day, but it is every week. I don't remember if I have that clip for you, but we're definitely going to hear from Ron, set the record straight regarding the Lewicki trip. He also talks about Dan Bylsma. And that's probably the biggest win for me. But again, we can break that down. I want you to hear the clip because I don't want to have things get lost in translation. So let's hear the clip. We're also going to hear from Ron a little bit later on the episode because, I think there are other things that this Seattle Kraken team there are definitely other things that the Seattle Kraken team has to work out. So we're going to hear Ron Francis set the record straight. We're going to talk about the lessons learned on the ice from the Pittsburgh game, but then also what is the road ahead, both on and off of the ice, and how it impacts this franchise. But first, let's hear from Ron Francis. He will be talking with John Forsland on the television broadcast of Tuesday night's game in Pittsburgh.
Kraken General Manager Ron Francis, kind enough to join us to kick it off here. Ronnie, thank you for doing this, number one. And let's start with where the team's at right now as far as you look at things, and just give us your assessment of what's happened so far.
Yeah, no, I think we're a little disappointed where we are at this point. I mean, I think we expected better things heading into the season, and we've struggled. Variety of reasons, but we think we're a better team than we're playing right now, and we're trying to find a way to get back to playing the way we think we're capable of.
I think it's important maybe for you to address a few things that have happened over the weekend. I think it's caused some confusion with our fan base. And I'm talking about, when a team struggles, people look into things, they put some things together. Todd Lewicki made a trip into Buffalo. They write things, they speculate. So why don't you clear the air as far as where all that stands for you?
Todd sent me a text on Tuesday, said that he had some meetings that were canceled. There were supposed to be some people from LA, and unfortunately we all know the devastating fires down there. His schedule freed up, and it was his birthday on the weekend, and I think he just wanted to go watch some hockey games. He sent me a text, said, I'm going to go watch some games, and I said, great, I'll see you in Detroit on Saturday. And one thing led to another, and a lot more speculation, but unfortunately we couldn't give him a good birthday present on Sunday.
Well, lines of communication are vitally important. You've always talked about that, right, in terms of the ownership. And that's the one thing that's been a beacon of light for the Kraken, and it still remains that way, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
How about the job that head coach Dan Bylsma has done and where that stands? And there was also some things said about, the hiring process and all of that.
Yeah, listen, I'm the GM. I hired Dan. He's my coach. And we're both trying to figure out a way to get us to where we need to get to. It's when you go through a stretch like this and things aren't happening, I think a lot of times your team becomes fragile. You lose some confidence, and we're trying to get it back to, you're seeing it even on this road trip. We had a great first period. In Columbus, not so great in the second. In Buffalo, we didn't have a great first period. We had a great last 40 minutes, and then we had a terrible start in Detroit. So it's a fragile group, and it's lost their confidence. We need to come out and just do the things that we know how we do well. We've shown it in spurts over the course of the season. We show we're capable when we play well, and we got to get back to believing in that and doing that.
What the fans don't see is when you're around the team, you're really around the team, and you had an off day yesterday. How did you spend it? I hear you had some meetings with the coaches, with the players, and where does this have to be fixed for you?
Yeah, no, and that's part of the job, right? As you go through this, it's never going to be a smooth 82-game season. There's going to be ups and downs, and so you have conversations with your coaches and what they're thinking, maybe what I'm seeing up top. We have those discussions on suggestions that maybe we can try. The same thing, right? You're talking to your players, you're grabbing some of your leaders, you're having discussions with them. Trying to get them some confidence back, trying to help them as far as their leadership in the room and on the ice. And that's all part of it. We're all in this together. We all want to be successful. The players aren't happy either. They want to win. It's much more fun coming to the rink when you're winning. So you're trying to do things like that, and we're all in this together, and we're trying to find a way out of it.
Is there a fundamental thing that has to be fixed in terms of the way they play, defensively or offensively, or?
Yeah, no, I think it's just more connected. I think when you're struggling, you're fragile, and then at times you tend to, I'm going to do my job, and I'm also going to help somebody else. And it's doing your job, doing it well. I think our work ethic in all three zones and connecting together can be better. I think supporting each other, stuff is going to happen in a hockey game. It's not always going to go your way. How we respond to that. We need to be more resilient. We need to be more together on that. And if we start doing that and having success, then we can have some more fun in the game and get the results that we're hoping to get.
So, we saw a lot there. A lot was said, but I think there were 3 words that came up that stood out to me. 2 of them were mentioned multiple times, and one, it kind of goes hand in hand, part and parcel, if you will, with the others. But Ron Francis used the term fragile multiple times. He used the term confidence multiple times. And then he talked about connected, or the lack thereof, being connected in all 3 zones. Sounds like something your fearless leader over here on Locked On Kraken mentions a lot, not just with this year's team, but with the Seattle Kraken team in general. So again, The win is that I thought Ron Francis came off as very cool, very calm, very collected, very straightforward. He gave enough information without divulging into specific details. He's a great communicator, I think, on TV. When we get him in media, he says things that make a lot of sense. Now, it's interesting because I was, some of our old, YouTube shorts popped up for me. And I remember Ron Francis being asked, hey, what is the blue line going to look like? Are you happy? Are we content with what we have? He's like, yeah, we're good. I'm paraphrasing. We're good. And then Brian Dumoulin gets traded, so now some of that is things change and you have to act in the best interests of the team. I think there is also a way to be cool, calm, and collected and maybe not show all of your hands. I don't think he's lying necessarily, but he's not going to divulge, again, more than he has to. But the win for me is that it was handled immediately. The Seattle Kraken reclaimed the narrative. And for me, going back to that word confidence, I'm hoping that if there was any ruffling of feathers or discontent, anything that impacted the coaching staff, but specifically Dan Bylsma, either directly in that he took what he heard or what was being reported some kind of way, or people were reacting to reports that were incomplete or downright false. I hope that has been eliminated. And that's why that it's a win that Ron Francis handled business. Now, we're going to hear from him a little bit later because we do have John Forsland ask about, well, what is happening here? What is going on? We've cleared the air. Now, where do we go? Right? And then John also affirmed the win, which I thought was great. Now, this is I'm being super nitpicky and pet peevey here. I understand that this is a Kraken broadcast. I don't know. I understand it's a Kraken broadcast. I think that just leaving the questions open-ended and letting Ron take it where he wants to take it. Maybe that's just because I'm a journalist. Obviously, this is a podcast where I can have a little bit more of an opinion, but my true form in media is to come from the journalist perspective and to try not to do leading questions or things of that nature. I do think it was a little homer, but again, it's the Kraken Hockey Network, so you can afford to do that. So it's more of a personal thing than I think anything was done wrong. Ron Francis did what he had to do. And I think that's good leadership. Coming up next, though, on Locked On Kraken, let's talk about the lessons learned and the leadership on the ice. Because as I affirmed and manifested, that's why I packed the Uma hat. It's really funny when I wear this in the airport and people are like, is that a pirate hat? And I'm like, hell yeah, it is. And I give no explanation. I'm like, yeah, it's a pirate hat. Some people are like, oh, cool hat. Like as if I just wear it around the airport all the time. It's really funny. Anyway, coming up, we'll talk about that Pittsburgh game. But again, I want to go back to Ron Francis and his comments, which overall, I mean, it's a passing score for sure. But also how the Seattle Kraken performed against a Pittsburgh team that we're going to see in just a handful of weeks at Climate Pledge Arena. We have to circle back to some things because you'll take the win, you need the win, and we got to talk about some things. So we'll get into that coming up on today's episode of Locked On Kraken. As I mentioned at the top of the show, today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our friends at Game Time. If you listen to the show, you know I love Game Time. Whether you are looking for sports, music, theater, or comedy, you can find the best ticket prices at Game Time. I have the Game Time app on my phone. I use it when I'm traveling. I will not be able, unfortunately, to do much outside of my work assignments on this trip. But when I do, I check it out because I like good deals. I like to find if I have free time. I got to make quick decisions. I don't want to be scouring the internet for just the tickets overall, let alone a good deal. And that's why I love that Game Time has made things even easier on the app for you to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And I want you to have as much fun going to live events as I do. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. But again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Hey there, Seattle hockey fans. Thanks again for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. Erica L. Ayala here in my UMA hat because the Seattle Kraken back in the win column, 4-2 win in Pittsburgh. I told you they'd get their 10th road win in Pittsburgh on Tuesday. The boys came through and started early. Now, the first period wasn't altogether great, but it did start with, of all people, it's me-high, Chandler Stevenson. Chandler Stevenson gets his 6th goal shorthanded, mind you. A shorty. Jared McCann with the primary assist. Joey Daccord. Yes, the goaltender. Joey Daccord with the secondary assist, his first ever NHL point. That's that puck-moving goalie that we all know and love. So good on Joey Daccord, who also had to make some pretty exemplary saves early in this game. But it would be Philip Tomasino who would bring the Pittsburgh Penguins level about halfway through the first period. Second period, it's Brian Rust from Carlson and Malkin to get Pittsburgh up. Then big rig, Jamie Alexiak from Oliver Bjorkstrand and Adam Larson. I love to see it. We've talked about Jamie Alexiak before. I think it was against the Islanders, right? At home where he scored. Eli Tolvanen. And then an empty net goal by Capo Caco. When we look at the post-game analysis by the amazing Allison Lucan, here are some things that stood out to me. I mentioned that Joey got his first NHL point. 42% of 5-on-5 shot volume. That's the percentage that the Seattle Kraken owned. They owned 32% of the shot quality 5-on-5. But in the third period, 61% of shot volume and 62% of shot quality. So this team really pushed it to the limit. They went out to get this game, as I've been saying in the last 2 episodes, by any means necessary. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't foolproof, bulletproof, flawless, any of those things. And there are definitely some things. I mentioned the shots on goal at the top of the episode to remind you, 33 shots on goal to 18. Now, on the one hand, the efficiency hasn't always been there. I mean, the Detroit game, am I right? For the Seattle Kraken. So you'll kind of take that. But what is also interesting is that the shot quality in favor of the Pittsburgh Penguins at a 3.2% or a 3.2 rating compared to 1.3 for the Seattle Kraken. I think puck battle win, 83% for Pittsburgh. In a loss, 17% for the Seattle Kraken. Now, again, this is a Pittsburgh team. They've got their own issues. We need to clean that up. We need to dominate a little bit more. Puck battle at 83% in the on 5-on-5 defense in favor of your opponent. You're lucky you win a game like that. Shot attempts on the power play. Each team officially had 1 power play opportunity. 5 shot attempts for the Pens. 1 shot attempt for the Seattle Kraken. That's not good enough. I know I said I was going to talk about this a little bit later, but I'm kind of talking about it now. I'll loop it all in. It'll make sense. Got a quality start from Joey Dax, so we love to see it. 31 saves, 33 shots faced, 14 of 17. Again, only 18 shots overall. So 1.2 over goals expected for Joey Daccord. Allison Lucan also writes 8 rushes for the Kraken compared to 3 against. I like that. And the right line. Sadly, it's not the right line that I know and love, but I do think that this clears up an issue that if you listen to the show regularly, everydayers and OGers, you know I've been concerned that we're kind of weighing Jared McCann down. And wouldn't you know, the right line with McCann and Tolvanen, they gutted out a win, or excuse me, the team overall gutted out a win, I should say. We'll get to that. But that line, I want to go back to it. I thought I wrote it down. Okay, here we go. The most effective line for tilting the ice was the right line with McCann and Tolvanen. The 3 were +3 in shot attempts and created an impressive 73.6% of all shot quality in just over 7 minutes of ice time. Again, shot quality 32% overall for the Seattle Kraken. It was 62% in the third period alone. This line made up 73.6% of shot quality. I think it's Emerald City Hockey that they had a hypothetical question about Shane Wright and if he needs more ice time. They are taking the affirmative on that. I would too, but I've said that for a while. I think things had to get figured out elsewhere on the lines, but I like what we're getting from Shane Wright. I really, really do. I think he plays a solid game. That's where it's tough. You get the win. I'm so happy to be wearing this hat. I really am. I really, really am. But we cannot, well, you can do what you want. I don't want this win to signify that we are so back, baby. I don't know what back to what, you know? That's kind of part of the problem. Back to what? I kind of said, that's Kraken hockey, baby. But I think this is a struggle game. This is not a total domination. That's not even close to the story. I mean, some of these numbers, how do you win a game with some of these numbers? Puck battles. I hate that. Oh, gosh. That's a gross stat for me. So more needs to get done. And, I'm not the only one who thinks so. I want you to hear what Dan Bylsma said after the game, because I think that sets us up for the last few snippets of what Ron Francis said, which we will play as we head into the third segment. But first, here's Dan Bylsma.
For the Buffalo game, we talked about the takeaways that you want the guys to carry from that very different kind of win here. What do you hope they take from this one as you look to keep building?
Just, talk about consistency in 60 minutes. The 60 minutes doesn't mean like the whole game goes your way, but staying with it and staying on it and bringing the energy for 60 minutes is paid off for us in this game, and that's what we're continuing to try to get to, and the guys did a great job of doing it tonight. There was ups and downs in the game. We had to withstand some blows, but we stuck with it for the whole way. And the game presented itself. You have to make a play in the third period to win a hockey game, and the guys did.
Anything particularly special about being able to win this game in this building for you?
Happy to get a win. Happy to get a win.
Happy to get a win, Dan Bylsma. I think you're not alone in that. But I liked what he said. 60 minutes, him talking about consistency, which, again, was mentioned by Ron Francis. 60 minutes doesn't mean the whole game goes your way. I love it. And I've talked about it before. There are lapses, it's just like an absent-mindedness from this team sometimes. They were able to get it back. Get it together. And that's a good sign. There's also a lot of energy that this team is exerting to try to win games. So what does that mean for this season? And what does it mean, however this team decides, or whoever this team, whatever position I should say, this team thinks that they need to be in at the trade deadline? It's going to have implications and ramifications on next season and beyond. It just is. Some decisions have to be made, and Ron Francis knows that. So we're going to hear him again. This was the final clip, or towards the end of it was roughly 6 minutes that he and John Forsland talked. We'll hear from Ronnie Francis again coming up on Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our friends at Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. I am a business owner, and it is tough when you even think about the onboarding process, because if there's something that you don't get right, then you have to work overtime. Does this sound familiar, Seattle Kraken fans? Then you have to work overtime as a team to figure it out. And you learn a lot from people. Some people have it and they're willing to work with you. Other people, they don't have it. And you have to decide, is it better for the long-term trajectory of the business to let that training go and find someone else, or to stick with something that isn't maybe the right fit? But you don't have to worry about that if you use Indeed. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. If you're hiring, Indeed is all you need. Thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. Erica L. Ayala here, your host of Locked On Kraken. As you can see on the graphic below, I'm using Blue Sky a lot more. So if you're not on Blue Sky, check it out, or don't. That's fine either way. But you can find all Locked On Kraken shows on YouTube, and of course, wherever you listen to audio podcasts. So if you want updates, if you want to know where to follow me, if you want to, do all of those things, we'll listen to the show when we have our episodes, and, check out the show notes, because sometimes we have some nuggets in there as well. What is next for this team? Well, immediately is the Winnipeg Jets. So we'll go over this a little bit on tomorrow's episode. We are at 41 points now. Oh, we got that 10th away win that I promised you. There we go. 63 points for the Jets. They are 6-2-2 in their last 10. We are 4-5-1. Penalty kill for them, 79.3% clip. Power play, 32.3% clip. So here we go. The Seattle Kraken need to commit to getting to 42 points, the Jackie Robinson number minimum in Winnipeg. Some people don't like the loser point. Listen, a point is a freaking point, and the Seattle Kraken need points. I want to see them at minimum get a point. Do whatever it takes to get a point out of this game. Again, I'll go over some more things tomorrow. But let's hear more from Ron Francis. What is possible? What is realistic for this team? And how does that impact the reality of where the team needs to be and what they perhaps need to do come the trade deadline?
The health of two players that are very popular with the fans, the captain Jordan Eberle. We haven't heard much of.
Oh, I forgot. We also got updates. So here are your updates.
Status. Can you give us an update on him and Yanni Gourde?
Yeah, in Jordan's case, the surgery was November 22nd, I believe. So he's about 7.5 weeks post-op. got off the crutches about a week or so ago, so that's exciting. We're probably a week or 2 weeks out before he starts touching the ice, but he's in the pool doing stuff. He hasn't been able to put weight on this stuff for the first 6 weeks, but he's probably more towards the end of February before we see him back, probably post the Four Nations break. And then in Yanni's situation, there's been some progress, some other things we're kind of trying to figure out. So I don't really have a time frame per se, but it's probably at least a couple weeks at this point, depending on what we find moving forward. Yeah, I mean, this is an important stretch for us as we head into that Four Nations break. I think with the Four Nations break and the trade deadline being on March 7th, that's when a lot of things will start to happen. There's a lot of dialogue and communication. You got to see where your team is as you get to that point. And that's the decision you make. Hey, are we in it? We got a chance for this. Are we going to add to it? Or we have to make decisions, some tough decisions, we'll move people out. But ideally, we just start playing the way we're capable of playing, because I think we're a good team. And we've shown it, like I said, at times this year. We just need to do it on a consistent basis.
There goes that word, consistency again. And that's tough. Once again, the Seattle Kraken find themselves in a position where we saw this in season 2 and, well, all of the seasons. There's just a point where it's like, are we sitting on the pot, or are we popping off? Perhaps complicated that not only the captain, Jordan Eberle, but now Yanni Gourde as well, out with an injury. Didn't sound like either one was making a return anytime soon. And that's really unfortunate. We're seeing some guys get opportunities in the lineup. It's a tough go for the Seattle Kraken team. But again, the consistency is really the thing here. Building out that consistency, that's the only hope that the Kraken have of salvaging anything this season. And then you get to the playoffs, anything can happen. But I mean, anything can happen for the Seattle Kraken team on a day in, day out basis. We never know what we're going to get. It's like a box of Kraken chocolates. That's why I said big wins, needed wins. Ron addressing head on a lot of things. The team getting that win against Pittsburgh. But now you get Winnipeg. You're going to get Pittsburgh again. Let's take a look, at the rest of the schedule for the Seattle Kraken. So, we sit here on January 15th, Winnipeg to round out the road trip. LA Kings, Buffalo again. Hopefully we can finish that out. Washington, and then as I mentioned, Pittsburgh again. Quick trip to Edmonton before hosting Anaheim on a how many back-to-backs are the Kraken going to play? Holy cannoli. Anyway, back-to-back, and the last time we played Anaheim on a back-to-back didn't really work out so well. Or is that San Jose? It was probably both. I can't remember. That was a dark period. But we get Anaheim and San Jose. And you know what? If you look at the standings versus if you look at how the Kraken have played, those games against San Jose, against Anaheim, not guaranteed. Nothing is a guarantee with this Kraken team. And they need to start really playing with some pride, really committing to whatever it takes. Like I said, it's an uphill climb for this team to beat Winnipeg. I'll mention it a little bit more tomorrow. But I don't want to call it, it's not a prediction. It's not a guess. This is the mindset. I am embodying the mindset that the Kraken have to have for tomorrow. We will not leave the ice until we are guaranteed at least 1 point. More would be beautiful. They need to get it. They cannot get a goose egg. And, don't focus on the negative. Focus on the positive affirmation. We will get 1 or more points against the Winnipeg Jets. That's what I want the team to commit to it and commit to doing whatever it takes. Whatever it takes to get it done. On tomorrow's episode, I'll break down some numbers, what we need to know, what's the breakdown, how the Kraken can get that 1 or more points against Winnipeg, and any other news that comes through the cycle. Again, this one is a little later. Tomorrow's episode should go out Well, it'll definitely be, it should go out before noon Eastern time because I am now on the East Coast. But, you'll have it before the game day. Hey, I like what our GM did. I like what our guys did. Joey Dax was fired up. Love that he got a point. And you have to keep it going. Keep it going. The job is not even close to done. Remember what that feels like? Now you have, hopefully, the confidence that you can manifest. You can affirm things. So go get it. Go get it. Like Ronnie Francis said, like I say all the time, the skill, what we have on paper, we have the capacity to play a much better game. Now we have to commit to that. So let's just go do it. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to one another. Hold fast. Stay true. And always, we say loud and proud, let's go Kraken. I want to make sure I didn't pack this hat for nothing. I'm in town here in Florida until Tuesday. So give me something to, talk about. Give me something good to talk about, Kraken fans. Kraken team, but also Kraken fans. I will catch you on the next episode. Peace out, everybody.